Hi Chloe, the stream is now live.
Thank you, Jack. Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Committee. Before we commence with the proceedings, I can confirm that the Council has adopted some basic etiquette rules for its remote meetings. For ease, these are as follows. Only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know when you want to speak through the chat function. The Chairman will introduce speakers in the order that the request to speak was made, unless there is a point of order which will be prioritised. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute your microphone when not speaking and consider turning off your video to reduce interference on the audio feed. Please bear in mind that there may be a lag between speaking and other attendees hearing you. Presentations, images or video footage should have been made available to you in advance of the meeting. Will be visible. When referring to a report, please quote the page number and paragraph number. We have no private business on the agenda this afternoon. However, it is members' responsibility to make sure that your venue and connection is private. If you lose connection at any point and are unable to immediately rejoin, then please call the meeting facilitator. Contact details have been provided. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to access to information regimes, FOI/EIR, and is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation, and the Council's Code of Conduct. For this meeting, the councillors are identified by a prefix of councillor before their name. There is a minute taker for this meeting and one meeting facilitator. I can confirm that the meeting is quorate. The Licensing Committee consists of the following members: Councillor Ball, Councillor Eusden, Councillor Hensman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Pell, Councillor Ramage, Councillor Raymond, Councillor Rose, Councillor Sandham, Councillor Schweer, Councillor Walters, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Wright. The officers for this meeting are Daniel Molini, Environmental Health Manager, Emma Wisby, Governance and Members Manager, myself, Chloe Waite, who is clerk in the meeting and also meeting facilitator. I will now hand over to the Chairman, Councillor Ball. Thank you.
Chairman, I do apologise to interrupt you before you take over this meeting. There is an omission that we've had left out Councillor Joe Beavis as part of the member of the committee membership, so I do apologise for that. And Chairman, could I also just confirm I appear to have Councillor Hensman, who's joined the meeting since we started the facilitating. Could Councillor Hensman confirm that he is there, please?
Yes, hello Emma, I did sneak in just before you started your script.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hensman. Apologies, Chairman, I now hand the meeting back over to you. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Committee, the first virtual meeting of the Licensing Committee and the first meeting since February. But despite the lapse of time, I should be working from a script, but despite the lapse of time, the first line is for the benefit of those on YouTube and not for those with short memory. I shall begin. My name is Councillor John Ball and I will be chairing this meeting. As you know, the Council is new to virtual meetings, so I'd ask everyone to be patient and understanding as we feel our way through this new way of working. I'm being assisted by a governance officer, excuse me, and a meeting facilitator who will help me identify when people want to speak and manage the notifications through the chat function. I obviously can't see all of you, so please let me know using the chat function if there are any issues with your internet connection. Please also remember to mute your microphone when you finish speaking. Members for this meeting, when I seek your agreement, silence will be taken as an assent. As the meeting facilitator has confirmed, the attendance of members and officers for this meeting, I shall now proceed with the business of the meeting. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Chairman, we have apologies for absence for Councillor Mrs Jenny Sandham, and we have got apologies from Councillor Rainman. It will be late joining our meeting, but we hope to have him join us shortly. So when he does join the meeting, we will just need to carry out a small microphone check to ensure that he is participating. There's no further apologies that are required to be declared. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. If there are no more apologies, I'll proceed to items 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this afternoon? Please state the item and the nature of your interest. Please indicate that you wish to speak in the chat function.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry, accept my apologies for being delayed. I was having issue to connect my team.
Thank you, Councillor Renman. We did give apologies on your behalf that you would be a little bit late. So thank you very much for confirming that you're in attendance. And thank you for carrying out your microphone check that we can hear you nice and clear. Chairman, would you like to continue with the declarations of interest? I believe to date you have not received any that prevent any members from taking part in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raymond, for your words. And if there are no more declarations, I'll proceed to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting held on 26th of February 2020. Members, for this item, I shall be seeking your agreement, therefore silence will be assent. However, if a member wishes to raise an issue in respect to the minutes, please indicate via the chat function. A good period of silence, so I think that indicates agreement to the minutes. That's agreement that the minutes are an accurate record. We move on to agenda item 4, public question time. Members, there are no registered speakers for this afternoon's public question time, so I will proceed to item 5, pavement licences, Business and Planning Act 2020. Members, this report was circulated to members on the Friday the 7th of August 2020. Please can I invite Daniel Molini, Environmental Health Manager, to set out the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, members. I would like to introduce a report with respect to the Business and Planning Act 2020 with respect to pavement licences. I intend to read the executive summary on the first page of the report, which I will assume that you have, and then I will go to summarise particular areas of the main body of the report, which is on page 6. So starting off with the executive summary, to make you aware that legislation has been introduced to help businesses adjust to new ways of working as the country recovers from disruption caused by COVID-19. By way of provisions within the Business and Planning Act 2020. One such measure, and there are many, is the arrangements with respect to pavement licences. A pavement licence is a licence which can be granted by the council and allows the licence holder to place removable furniture over certain highways adjacent to a premises in relation to which the application was made for certain purposes. So this report sets out the Council's powers to issue licences under the Business and Planning Act 2020 and explains the process necessary to issue licences, including a scheme of delegation to officers. The Council is also required to set a fee for applications under the Act and to determine the duration of licence. So I will now summarise certain parts of the body of the report, and then I will return to the decisions and then invite any questions. So the Act came into force very quickly on the 22nd of July. It passed through both houses of Parliament, of Commons and the Lords very quickly, and as local authority, we've been asked to enact provisions as quickly. So a key part of the Act includes a temporary measure to allow businesses to apply for licence to place tables, chairs and other furniture on the highway through, as they refer to as, a new fast track procedure. Just to make members aware, there's already a provision through the Highways Act 1980 that businesses that are selling food and drink, such as cafes and pubs, can already do this. Okay, I will say that it's a process that has been in place for many, many years, and the council does provide, and committee members will be aware that we receive applications with respect to these type of applications. The current fee for a pavement licence is £327, and once we receive an application, it's been deemed valid where the applicant has determined that the piece of land where they wish to place furniture on has either received planning permission and also proof of highways land. The council will open up a 28-day consultation with a number of key consultees. This will include such as Essex County Council Highways, Essex Police, Essex County Fire and Rescue, the ward members and others. The council will also seek consent from the Highways Authority, which has to be obtained. And I will go into that in slightly more detail in a moment when I refer to the new legislation. The council will arrange for public notices to be placed on the premises, identify and consult with persons who we would deem to be affected or have an interest in the application. And during that 28-day consultation period, once it is finished, should there be any objections or an applicant wishes to depart from the council's policy, then the matter would be determined by the licensing committee. All in all, it is assumed, and I've made the assumption from experience, at best, and assuming that the process runs smoothly, the time taken between the submission of an application for planning permission and obtaining a pavement permit could be in excess of 5 to 6 months. So it can take some time. So the new procedure aims to reduce the time taken to issue a licence. So the Act allows businesses, which include pubs, public houses, licensed premises, wine bars, however, drinking establishments, and businesses that sell food or drink consumption on or off the premises, to apply for a pavement licence to place removable furniture on part of a relevant highway. I don't intend to define what a relevant highway is, but in page 6 and page 7 of your report, it is detailed. The process does not relate to private land. We will receive inquiries, and you may be thinking, will premises that or businesses that have space on their own land to place place furniture on them, will they be required to apply for a licence? They won't. In some situations, we may need to be able to, highways or the local authority may have to confirm whether such land is in private ownership. However, businesses will be able to do that where the land is theirs. So under the Act, the definition of furniture is classed as counters or stalls for selling or serving food or drink, tables, counters or shelves on which food or drink can be placed, chairs, benches or other forms of seating, and umbrellas, barriers, heaters and other articles used in connection with the outdoor consumption of food and drink. So the application process for the new legislation. The licence must be made in writing and in such form as the council specifies. The application is made on the day in which it is submitted to the council. This includes those applications made on weekends and bank holidays. An application must specify the premises, the part of the relevant highway and the purpose or purposes for which the application relates, specify the days on the week on which and times of the day between which it is proposed to put furniture on the highway, describe the type of furniture to which the application relates, specify the date on which the application is made, evidence of public liability insurance, and contain or accompanied by such other information or material as the council requires. Premises are going to be required to have public liability insurance set at a level in excess of £5 million, and is the council will require that this cover extends to the pavement licence area itself and not just to the business, which is key when businesses contact their insurance companies to make sure that the entire area is covered. Just moving on to page 8 with respect to section 4 fees. Fee may be charged for the application. The Act states that the fee may not exceed £100 and therefore subject to a statutory cap. The council may, however, determine that the level of fee payable up to this statutory cap. I won't talk to you about fee setting, but I will say, to give context, the current pavement permit for council application fee is £327, which far exceeds the capped fee for the pavement licence. This reflects the time taken to process and determine an application and additional cost of hearing an application at a licensing committee. An assessment of the cost of processing and management of an issued licence in accordance with the provisions of the Act are in excess of the capped fee. This is therefore proposed under the first decision that the council charge for a maximum fee of £100. The committee can, however, decide to set the fee below the maximum should it choose to do so. If this option is considered, it is important that any additional costs incurred in addition to the cap are not absorbed by other licensing regimes. Just like to move on now regarding to application notice and consultation. The Act gives the council discretion to decide how applications are published and how to give notice during the statutory consultation period. Accordingly, the council will publish these notices on its website and invite representations and state when the consultation period will end. The consultation period will be 7 continuous consecutive days from the calendar day after the application is submitted, which does include weekends. So, for instance, anything that was received by the authority on a Friday will commence on a Saturday and so forth. This will create operational issues for the council, but there is no discretion for the council to amend the consultation period on a correctly submitted application. In effect, it's a very, very short consultation period. So consultees will need to be advised of this, that if they do wish to make an objection, that they do so swiftly. The applicant will be required to fix the notice of the application to the premises so that the notice is readily visible to and can be read easily by the public, and ensure that it remains in place until the end of a statutory public consultation period. The notice must be displayed from the day the application is submitted to the council. So the council will direct applicants to a template notice which can be downloaded from government website, and the template will help applicants meet the requirement of the Act. In addition to the public consultation via the applicant's public notice, the Act requires the council to consult with the Highway Authority and such persons the council considers appropriate. The key difference between the two pieces of legislation are the Highways Authority now becomes a consultee. So there are a number of other consultees, and that includes Braintree District Council ward members for the area where the applicant relates. This is similar to the current process. Economic Development here at Braintree Council, the Town Centre and Public Realm Manager at Braintree District Council, colleagues in Environmental Health that relate to noise, food, health and safety, our colleagues in Development Control, Essex Police, Essex County Fire and Rescue Service, and the relevant parish or town council, which we consider to be critical. The council does not intend to consult more widely due to the short statutory consultation period of 7 days, and the public notice requirements are already in place. So when determining an application, the council will take into account any representation made during the statutory consultation period. The council has a further 7 days, say in effect 5 working days from the closure of the consultation. There's no discretion for the council to extend this period again. So should the council fail to determine an application within a 7-day period, the application will be deemed granted. So it's quite critical that we do turn these applications around and do determine them in a timely fashion. So if we do fail to do this, the only safeguard there will be is that the council's published conditions will be placed on a licence. However, as long as the council performs its functions correctly, it can grant or reject an application. So having regard to representations, the council may determine how much of the space the licence will cover and may limit for the purposes which the licence has been applied for. So in effect, this means that if somebody would like to apply for a licence which covers a large area, if the council do not think this is appropriate, then the council can limit an area by size. There are a number of examples where you would probably imagine where this could take place, where an applicant could apply for a large part of a town centre, or a large part of a town centre, and the council can restrict this. So, with respect to durations of licence, the council can decide when granting how long it should remain in place. We are limited in this regard. However, a licence in accordance with legislation cannot be granted for less than 3 months, and the council may leave it open-ended, in which case the licence will automatically expire at the end of 30th of September 2021 in accordance with the relevant section of the Act. So in effect, the legislation will at this stage collapse in on itself on that date. However, depending on the situation we are currently in, should that increase, then the government will have the ability to increase that date. So any licence that hasn't been determined correctly will last for a period of 1 year. However, it's proposed that where the council determines the application within the statutory timeframe, the licence will not have a limit on its duration and will automatically expire at the end of the 30th of September 2021, which is roughly a year. So referring to section 5 and conditions, as I've already previously stated, the council can place conditions on a licence which it thinks reasonable. So the council is required to publish standard conditions in which it wishes to add to a licence in advance, so that anyone can see what those conditions are, both applicants and anyone who may be affected by the grant of the licence. It is also expected the council may require to add additional conditions, which we would call site-specific conditions, which relate to what is happening on a particular site or a particular issue, or conditions that may be raised by one of the consultees. It must also be said there are some applicants with respect to the existing process that may wish to add conditions to a licence themselves, which it is believed that they should be allowed to do so as long as those conditions are relevant. So the general rule regarding conditions are that those conditions must be appropriate, necessary and proportionate, precise, clear and ambiguous, practical, realistic and enforceable, and do not repeat each other. So the proposed standard conditions are attached to the licence, to be attached to a licence, are found in Appendix 1 to the report. So I'll just cover some key areas with respect to condition, and the first one relates to disabled access. The council has undertaken a quality impact assessment of how this policy or this procedure will affect defined groups, and the council must have regard in particular to 2 specific matters when deciding when furniture on the pavement is or would be an obstruction. These are the needs of disabled people and recommended distances required for access by disabled people as set out in the guidance. The guidance is attached as a link to your report, and it's called Inclusive Mobility 2005, and that basically lays out minimum distances that it is believed that persons who are disabled should have clear distances to get past or to navigate past an obstruction on highway. It also talks about disabled persons with visual impairment and how a pavement area can look to ensure that those persons can navigate safely past. It's specifically talking about colour contrasts and so forth to make it easier. The council must have regard to these matters when considering whether to grant a licence and whether to use its enforcement powers. So section 3.1 of the guidance sets out a range of recommended widths which would be required depending on the needs of particular pavement users. And it would also be dependent on whatever pavement is available and what that space of realm public highway is being used for at the time. So an obvious choice is that potentially if an area of road became an area used for pavement licenses, then you would need to take that into account. It's important that pavement license already areas clearly defined and separated from the rest of the walkway, as I've previously said. The next section is smoke-free seating. Now, this is, I'd like to say, revolutionary and very, very new. The Act places a requirement that a licence holder who places seating on the highway for the purpose of the consumption of food or drink must make reasonable provision for seating where smoking is not permitted. So, in effect, in a part of a licensable area, smoking will be banned or be required to be banned, which in effect is the first location outside where this has taken place. In addition, the council would have to have regard to guidance issued by the Secretary of State when considering whether reasonable provision has been made for seating where smoking is not permitted for the purposes of their functions relating to the grant of licences and enforcement. In terms of a particular area which we felt that was important to cover is hours of operation where a licence takes place. Proposed that the council add a standard condition on all pavement licences, which ensures that furniture would not be placed on the highway before 9 o'clock in the morning and after 2200 hours on a Monday to Sunday. This condition is designed to help minimise the potential impacts of public nuisance, especially in areas that include residential dwellings, and will also believe to reduce the risk of crime and disorder, especially in a town centre setting. This will provide for consistency with the standard hours for pavement permits granted under the Highways Act 1980. Just to put this in context, at the moment, that any applicant that wishes to place chairs and tables on a highway before 9 and after 6 o'clock in the evening are required to have their application determined by the licensing committee. So each of those conditions can be scrutinised and then the application scrutinised by members. This will not be the case in this situation, and while many premises will close far later than 10 o'clock in the evening and will wish obviously to place chairs and tables on the highway after 10 o'clock, it is believed that 10 o'clock is a reasonable time that these areas should be stopped to be used. However, can obviously make comments with respect to this and obviously form their own views. So when it comes to Section 6 and enforcement, the Act allows the council to take action against the licence holder should a condition of licence be breached. The council may either revoke a licence or require steps to be taken to remedy the breach. So where those steps are required to remedy, the council can serve a notice on the licence holder requiring the breach to be remedied as specified in a notice within a set period of time. Should this not be complied with, the council can choose to take the steps itself and recover the cost of doing so from the licence holder. The council can revoke a licence or part of a licence where the furniture is giving rise to public health and safety concerns and antisocial behaviour, public nuisance, or where the highway is being obstructed. The licence can also be revoked where the applicant did not put up a notice to publicise the application as required, or where parts of the application was false or misleading. It's important to note that while powers of enforcement exist under the procedure, should a business place furniture on a highway without a licence, the responsibility of that enforcement lies with the Highways Authority. There should be an expectation that enforcement is considered to be a priority in these cases, which will help ensure the integrity of the licensing regime. Should the council take action and remove furniture from the highway, it will become an involuntary bailee for items removed. And I believe that simply means that we will become responsible for that furniture while it's in our possession. However, we'll go back to section point 6.6 of this. It is expected that Essex County Council Highways do, in the first instance, consider taking enforcement action where these points have been met. So just quickly, I'll move on to scheme of delegation. So due to the statutory periods for determining applications are very, very short, it's not practical to refer these applications to the licensing committee for determination. For example, to call a meeting of the licensing committee, the council must give 5 clear working days notice of the meeting. To call a meeting to deal with an application, officers will need to be considering calling a meeting of the licensing committee upon the submission of each application, which would require considerable resources, not only from the council's licensing team, but also from the governance service. Therefore, it's considered appropriate that functions and decisions relating to the application for a pavement licence should be delegated to officers to discharge on behalf of the council. So you will see here the proposed scheme of officer delegation is set out below, which is to delegate to the corporate director with the responsibility for licensing or then nominated representative in consultation with the chairman of the licence committee or in their absence the vice chairman the following functions, which are to grant an application for a pavement licence as applied for, to grant an application with amendments including but not limited to the addition of conditions and amendments to the area subject to the licence or purposes, to refuse an application for a pavement licence, to take enforcement action including the revocation of a pavement licence in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So upon the exercising of a delegated authority, in each case, a decision will be supported by a written report and a record decision which will be published. And just finally, there is no appeal process to the council's decision to refuse an application or imposition of conditions or any reduction of the size or purposes of the application, which is relatively unique in licensing terms. So the council have chosen, the report highlights that the applicants who are aggrieved with the decision can request a review, which will be conducted by an internal review panel, which the council will arrange should the need arise. The internal review panel will consist of the chairman of the licensing committee or their representative and the environmental health manager responsible for licensing or their representative. The panel will review the grievance against the original decision made and determine whether the original decision should be upheld. Returned to the corporate director for reconsideration. And any other persons aggrieved by a decision to grant a licence may make a complaint in accordance with the council's complaint procedure. So finally, before I hand back to the chairman, I'm just going to read the decisions. The recommended decisions are: number 1, to set the fee for pavement licences at £100. 2, determine that all pavement licences, where approved, will expire on the 30th of September 2021. Agree the standard conditions to be attached to all the approved pavement licences as set out in Appendix 1 to the report. And agree the officer scheme of delegation with respect to pavement licences as set out into the report. Thank you very much. I hand back to the chairman.
Thank you very much, Dan. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Could you please indicate on the chat function? I have no one so far.
Councillor Bohr, Councillor Beavis looks like she's indicating by using the hand function as opposed to the chat function. Would you like to invite Councillor Beavis to address?
Okay. Councillor Beavis, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to thank Daniel Molini for this report at pace, and I've studied it quite a bit, and I would be more than happy to support it. And I think the information therein for those wanting to have a licence is really helpful. So thank you, including, you know, at this time, guidance on COVID as well. I just wanted to ask, and I may just have missed it, if somebody takes a licence and, say, for example, they started to put a radio on or there was a lot of noise being created, what have we sort of built into this? It may be there, Daniel, and I've just missed it, or it's standard. But apart from that, I'm more than happy to move the moving forward of this paper. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Beavis, thank you. Would you like me to answer this one, Chair?
Yes, please.
If you refer to part 6 of the report, then paragraph 6.4 states the council can revoke a licence if it has concerns with respect to antisocial behaviour, public nuisance, or whether highways being obstructed. So we should be able to deal with that.
It comes in. No, I'm happy with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Any further members who wish to make I have Councillor Euston, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question about enforcement. So if a licence is granted and there are difficulties, shall we say, with it that require enforcement, that enforcement falls to us as the licensing authority. But if there's no licence and they set up anyway, that enforcement falls to Essex County Council. Is that correct? And is that not somewhat confusing for us as well as members of the public? Thank you.
Yes, I would like to say that is absolutely correct. The district council will check with compliance and undertake enforcement with sector businesses that have a licence, and because the land is highways and not the district councils, it's the Essex County Council's land, then enforcement of obstructions is a highways function. And you whether you would say that makes it confusing or not, I will leave that to you.
Chairman, if I may just, in addition to Danny's comments, it's actually set out within the legislation as to who is the enforcement authority. So as Danny says, it is confusing, but the powers are set out within the Highways Act, and then they are referred to in the planning and business legislation as well. So it is a complicated process, and Danny's links with the Highway Authority are very important in dealing with any infringements of licences or any obstructions or unconsented furniture on the highway. So it's something that we work very clearly and carefully with, and it's something that Danny's invested a lot of time with in making sure that we've got good relationships with our Highway Authority colleagues.
I think, members, it's also just worth stating that after research, should the County Council not exercise its function to undertake enforcement where licences or permits are not in place, the District Council could choose to take its own enforcement action, although that would be something that the council wouldn't enter into lightly, because the functions are supposed to be a county function, but the council could choose to do so.
Thank you. I have Bill Rose to speak next. Councillor Bill Rose.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question really for Daniel. I'm looking at the licence fee of £100, Daniel, and in the main I support this proposal you've put here, this report. I'm just thinking outside the square, a small cafe, perhaps in the high street, as opposed to a large high street pub who may well have 4, 5, 6 tables. Would the licence fee be the same, or do you think it would merit a licensing sliding scale?
Same.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I would suggest to members that there wouldn't be such a scale. When setting fees, the council needs to be regarded by have regard to guidance and what can and what cannot be included in fees. And generally, the fee is set with respect to the process, the time taken to process an application. So you could say that if an application takes X amount of time, then you would say that the hourly rate would be reflective. You can, in some certain situations, and the argument goes in licensing, for if it takes such a long time to determine an application, because by definition the business is so much larger, then that facility is allowed in licensing, where you can charge sliding scales of fees. But I would suggest, with respect to pavement licenses and this regime, that the costs would be very, very similar, and therefore a sliding scale would not be appropriate. And I would also say that, as I stated in the report, the cost of administering an application are far in excess of £100 in all instances. So the suggestion is that all licenses are set at the statutory maximum.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
Okay, members, I'm ever sorry to interrupt you. We appear to be having some difficulties with our broadcast. Can I just check that all members could hear the advice given by Danny Mullaney in response to Councillor Rose's question, please?
Yes.
Yes,
thank
please.
you. Okay, Danny, could
Yes.
I please ask? Could I ask that the cameras are switched off? That we proceed on an audio basis for the time being. It seems that we're struggling with the connectivity to the meeting, so I do apologise for interrupting. But obviously, I do need to make sure that the meeting is still compliant with the corona regulations. Could the broadcasting officer just confirm that the YouTube broadcast is still sound, please? Jack, could you respond?
Hi, mate. It's still running fine.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. I do apologise, Chairman, for interrupting, but we do need to make these checks where we experience problems. Apologise to Danny for interrupting him, and I'll hand back to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. I just tried to turn off the video. It turned off both. So, no. Yes. Any more members? Any further members wish to speak?
Yes, Chairman. I put my hand up on chat. Councillor Ramage.
Okay, Councillor Ramage, please proceed.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, first of all, Chair, can I apologise for coming in late, but for some reason or other there were some technical problems finding the link to get into the meeting, so I apologise for that. And also, I'm not, because I've missed the first part of the presentation, I might be duplicating something that's already been said, but can you clarify to me as far as where the chairs or tables are situated outside a licensed premises, wherever? Will there be any sort of barrier between the area of the pavement where people can walk by, i.e. a rope or some sort of trellising? Because you know yourself, whenever a lot of people are outside drinking, they tend to encroach onto the rest of the pavement. And I just feel that could be an issue for some people. And I wonder what measures are in place to prevent that happening. Thank you.
Just to respond to the question, thank you, Councillor Ramage. Each application will be considered on its own merits. As I said in the report, that there will be a number of bodies that will be consulted, including Highways, and Highways' remit will really be looking at how the pavement is used once somebody wants to place tables and chairs and other furniture on it. So they'll be making sure that the pavement is free from obstruction as far as possible, and that other users can use the pavement adequately. You're very right. Barriers is a key method of doing this, and actually it will define an area, because people will naturally tend to move chairs and tables if this area is not defined. People will put chairs and tables together to make bigger groups, and that could certainly become blockages. I would not want to say that every single pavement license would need or should have barriers. I know that there will be some locations we've already looked at that placing barriers on will actually restrict the use of the pavement so much that actually it will not be possible to put pavement licenses or areas of tables and chairs on at all. And I'm referring to areas where you're talking about a small shop frontage would simply want to put maybe one or two tables with one or two chairs either side, running along the facade of the premises. And actually in those situations it may not be appropriate or be required to use barriers, but the County Council will make it very clear that if they feel that barriers are required on each application, and if this is not possible due to the width of the path in existence, and you'll be aware of some areas that, if you're particularly talking about a town centre setting where there are a number of shops, where the paths are not always as wide as they would be expected, it may not be appropriate to have a pavement licence area at all. But County Council will comment on this.
I have Councillor Pell to speak. Go ahead, Councillor Pell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going back to Councillor Beavis's statement, if she was proposing the motion, I am happy to second it for you.
Accepted, right. I also have Councillor Beavis, who's just declared an interest as a member of Essex County Council. Do I have any further members who wish to speak? No. I have a couple of questions of my own.
Can I have a quick question? Because I can't find the hand button, or is Councillor Wright?
Sorry?
It's Councillor Wright. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
I can't find the hand button on my screen, so I couldn't get in there in time.
Right.
Does the premises only can put the pavement licence outside their frontage, or can they encroach and actually get a licence for the next door premises?
In answer, in theory, an applicant can request an area to cover an area that they choose. In theory, yes, I would suggest. The existing legislation provides sets out a provision for seek and request, and they're called frontages with an interest. This new act does not. So it would be very important to, if this were the case, and it may not just be a premises either side. You could be talking about over on the other side of a road, or in front of another shop on another part of an area. So it would be very important to deal with that in a specific set of circumstances. But the answer is yes, they could do so.
Chairman, if I just may draw members to attention, the parameters of the applications are set out in paragraph 3.1, which says that the furniture is on part of the relevant highway adjacent to their premises. So it's not as broad as the highway permits which are available under the Highways Act. This is a more narrower to enable those businesses to be able to operate. So there is, depending on what regime the application is made under, will depend on what space that they can have. So there is a degree of duplication with the legal provisions under the pavement permits to that, which is under the highway permits. So, but principally they echo along the same lines. But as Danny has set out the provisions in paragraph 3.1 of the report for you.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, I think either in the guidance or elsewhere, it does say that they have to prove that they have ownership or control, for example, a lease over the property. I don't think they're allowed to encroach. I'd just like to also put a couple of questions of my own. Where there is a pedestrianised area, such as we're going to have in our own high street, is there no highway land designated that cannot be encroached onto? Even though there are no vehicles going through there will be obvious requirement for emergency vehicles. And the second question was, there's an interesting piece in there in that this basically gives an off-sales license to licensed premises, even where they don't actually hold a current off-sales license. The only exclusions are if they've been banned or something in the previous 3 years. Does this create a precedent for and off sales, which would carry on beyond the life of this piece of legislation. So, is that your question?
Chairman, I'll take that question. If your first question, you've talked about the scope of the highway which this application can be subject to. They're set out in paragraph 3.2 of your report, and it's a very specific list of highways. If it's highway land that falls outside that specific list, then it's not an application that can be made under this piece of legislation. Now, in terms of your second questions regarding off-sale, the process that you're concerned about is given permission to use the highway to place tables and chairs on the highway. So we would not view this decision as to whether this would then grant any rights under the Licensing Act to sell alcohol. This is purely looking at a decision about putting in place a regime under the Business and Planning Act to allow use of the highway to place tables and chairs. So I think it's very important that members don't get distracted about other provisions around the sale of alcohol, because this is outside the scope of the decision that you've been asked to look at today.
Thank you very much, Emma. We have then just checked that there's no one else who wishes to speak. Is that correct?
I cannot see any indication, Chairman, so I believe all members who wish to speak have spoken on the matter.
This motion has been proposed and seconded. So recommendations as set out on page 2 of the report have been moved and seconded. I'll now proceed to the vote, which I'll conduct as a roll call. Members, when I call your name, please can you respond with your vote? For, against, or abstain?
Chairman, before you take the vote, I believe there may be a slight typographical error in your script that, again, Mrs. Beavis may be left off the list. I do apologise. So could you please ensure that you do call Mrs. Beavis? That is our error, and I do sincerely apologise.
Yeah, so alphabetical, we have Councillor Beavis.
And thank you for that, Emma. I hugely appreciate it. And clearly I'm for the recommendations. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Euston.
For, thank you.
Councillor Hensman.
For, Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnson's not with us this afternoon. Thank you, Chairman.
No. Councillor Mrs. Powell.
For.
Councillor Ramage.
For.
Councillor Raymond.
For, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Rose.
For, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Schwier.
For.
Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm for. Thank you.
For. Councillor Mrs. Wilson.
For.
And Councillor Wright.
For.
Members, I can confirm that that motion has been passed, has been approved. And that concludes our business for this afternoon. So I shall close the meeting of the Licensing Committee at, I think, 13:52.
Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, members, for your
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Members,
Thank
before you depart, could you please allow the meeting facilitator to close the meeting? Thank you.
I'll now
Thank
hand
you,
over
members.
to the facilitator. Thank you.
Before I ask the webcaster to terminate the broadcast, I would urge members to complete the short web-based meeting feedback survey that will be emailed to you shortly. This is very important to us to help improve our meetings. I would also like to remind you that the Council will retain performance data relating to your connection to the meeting in the event of a legal challenge to this new way of holding meetings. Can the webcaster please confirm that the webcasting has stopped?